Yeah, so basically after the whole Roundshaw and Wallington Public Hall, Roundshaw Youth Club, I got the opportunity. Trevor said to me, would you like to come to Ibiza? So I said, sure, why not? And, we were going out there for a holiday. It turned into something a lot more.
So this is 1983?
84.
84,
Yeah. It would have been June. Yeah, it would have been the beginning of 84. And of course, just before I take my exams.
Right. Did you actually do any exams at all, Ian? Because I'm saying, right.
Never.
Right.
I've never sat in an exam ever.
Okay.
I
know you did a course at the moment. I was just about to say, do you have to do an exam for that?
Well, no. It's not like the old school exam at the end of the course. This is you get assignments throughout the year.
Yeah. All right.
And once you've done all your assignments.
Good. Well, I know my courses at Nescott were coursework based, which is better.
So yeah, landed in Ibiza, first time ever. Wow, it was quite a thing, really. I think we stayed in a hotel first of all, which was peanuts. It would have been something like £5 or something, if that. Dropped our bags off, and then it would have been boiling hot. You always remember leaving England and getting on a plane and then walking out onto that area where the planes are, and because you'd have had to walk from the plane to the terminal, because it was just a little hut back in those days. It's not like it is now. Ibiza Airport was just a little house, it's a bit bigger than a house.
Yeah.
And it would have been, the heat would have hit you, it would have been, and then a lot of tropical palm trees in the distance. And you're in Playa d'Embossa, so the sea's almost is right there as well. So you've got that wind and the heat.
You're not in Carshalton anymore.
Nope. And you're not going back to Carshalton for some time.
Yeah.
So you're in Ibiza, and we came fully loaded. We were ready for. So we took a lot of records with us. We'd been run round to all the record promotion companies.
Yeah, because what was your plan going out there? Like when Trevor said you want to go Ibiza,
just for a holiday.
It was for a holiday.
Initially.
It wasn't.
Yeah, but he'd been out there before, so we went out there on a bit of an exploration thing. And once I got there and I saw it, it was just 2 hours from London. It was like, what was the point? It's just, you could live there as well. So that was the idea. Spend the summers there, and so I never came back. I never came back for my exams. I basically walked away from college and London life at that point for a while, and got immersed into Ibiza lifestyle. I think we dropped our bags off and headed straight down to the Café Del Mar. I think that was the first thing, shorts on, t-shirt, all done out in our new Catherine Hamnet t-shirts, Ban the Bomb, Save the Whale, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Real 80s stuff, and got down to the Café Del Mar, and I think we were walking along, and we could hear, I don't know, it was either Joy. I think it might have been Joy, the track. Who sung Joy? Curtis Mayfield.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was Curtis Mayfield. Joy, I think, was coming around the corner, and we were just like, I could hear this music just coming along the beach, and we were turned the corner, and we were walking to the Café Del Mar. I think Trevor went up to the guy, met him for the first time, and it was Jose Luis, Padilla. Jose Padilla, the famous Café Del Mar DJ. Yeah, it was very relaxed, there was just a few people there. You could get a sandwich there and a drink, or just hang out on the beach. They'd bring trucks of sand, because in the winter the waves would wash away all the sand, and all would be left would be rocks. But every summer they'd replenish it. They'd bring from the other side of the island trucks and trucks of sand and cover over the rocks. So you had a really nice beach, and it was really nice. You had these speakers like going out to sea, and there was this beautiful raft set out in front of the cafe, and a little raft on a string. So if you went and lied down on the raft, you could get your drinks. You could pull them into you, and then send your empties back to the waiter. And this really, really nice eclectic sounds were, really chilled out vibe coming across the airwaves. And the design of the Cafe Del Mar, it was just incredible. It was the same designer as who designed Es Paradis and the Project Bar. We ended up renting the Project Bar a few years later. But anyway, at that time we were just having fun. We were going to Es Paradis in the evening. We were going to Coup, spending our days at Cafe Del Mar.
What was the clientele like then? Where were they from? Were they like...
The people were a real mixed bag.
Yeah.
It was very hippie. It was still very, very hippie. There were a lot of Scandinavians there because this was pre-ecstasy and all that.
Yeah.
As soon as ecstasy came about, the Scandinavians stopped all their citizens from coming to Ibiza. They actually stopped. Yeah, they stopped the flights. They didn't want them associating with, these kind of young people that are hedonistic. So they a lot of those Scandinavian tour operators just went. They stopped serving up Ibiza and probably went to Mallorca and places like that. And Minorca. Yeah, it was too crazy for them. Yeah, I was 19 years old, hanging out at the cafe all day, and then Trevor got a few DJ gigs, and he shared them with me. So I was playing at a club called The Idea some nights of the week, and I got a contract to work there.
What sort of tunes were being played then by you and Trevor at that time?
It was like Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Two Tribes Go to War and Jingo and all those sort of those real mixed bag of soul and funk, and then you drop a bit of James Brown in and just all kinds of music really. It was nothing in particular.
No, yeah.
It was whatever went. But I do remember at one point playing at the Idea Club, Two Tribes Go to War, and there was like East London and South London throwing bottles at each other across the dance floor. It went off, we had to hide.
Yeah.
And and...
So you did get a few UK punters out there, it was like...
Oh, it was full of English.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it was only English. It was English everything. San Antonio was English. But it was, pretty much... it was football. I never went to a football match in my life, so I didn't know anything about football behaviour and football people. Just avoided it. Never ever was interested in going to a football match. But because you have all this camaraderie and people that, these crews that are linked together through football, people do business, they meet people, everybody, happens at football.
Well, it's another type of gang, isn't it? You talked about the dancers or even like you said, the Mitcham dance crew back in the soul days. People have their little tribe that they want to hang out with.
Yeah, but they're quite boisterous. They're loud. Yeah. Especially when they get drunk. They actually turn into sort of semi-hooligans at night.
Well, and I guess like you said, that's kind of a neutral zone, but it means you're mixing with.
Well,
people
the thing is,
you're not in East London or South London, are you?
I'm hanging out with quite cool Europeans that dress nice, and then you've got these kind of football thugs that turn even more thuggish as the night goes on, and loud and obscene and rude and just messy. Yeah. And we don't get messy, and we don't drink until we're drunk like that, or I don't think I've ever been drunk that often. So we were hanging out with really nice, cool people from Europe, all parts of Europe, who come to Ibiza for the summer, and we were going to clubs like Es Paradis, and Coup, not Star Club, where all the English would you know go. And they went there, and fair enough, they felt comfortable, and that's where their tour operators would take them, because their tour operators would be on a kickback, and that's the way it works out there. If the tour operator, the rep on the holiday 1830 or whatever, took all their crew to a certain bar at the beginning of the evening, then they'd get backhanders, or they'd get free drinks, and they'd get a kickback at the end of the season.
I'm sure the UK punters were drinking a lot of booze. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean that's all they did. You know what I mean? They'd work all year and spend all their money in Spain. Yeah. But it was the guides who would say, right, we're going out tonight on a walk around San Antonio, but it was them that chose where to go. Yeah. So if that guide brought all their crew into my bar, of course I'd give him a backhander at the end of the... And that's how it worked. It was a lot of backhanders going on. And so I was hanging out. I wasn't, these people, regular English people would get up and start drinking after breakfast on the beaches, and by the time sunset comes, they're all pissed. We'd be smoking joints down at the Café Del Mar, thinking we're much cooler than everybody else. Maybe we were, maybe we weren't. And we weren't talking about football. We were talking about other things, and then we would be going home and having a shower and going out for the evening, which would start with dinner, and then going to a club, and then probably looking for a little bit of sniff, and that would be the drug of choice back in those days. I remember 1984, towards the end of the season, it wasn't just English people, it was all kinds of people that were there. You didn't have telephones in Ibiza, we drove Maharis, these fiberglass Citroen cars. They were like for the desert. They were the only cars there. And then you had motorbikes, and all the roads didn't have tarmac. They were all dirt, sandy, and most of them, apart from the main road to Ibiza town. We were just kind of like beach bums, trying to make ends meet, and following whatever fads came about, and having a lot of fun in the meantime. Lots of beautiful girls and beautiful beaches, and it was a beautiful island, and you didn't need a lot of money actually. Get up in the morning and get yourself a nice bocadillo sandwich and head to the beach, and spend the day on the beach or at the Café Del Mar, and then go out in the evening. It was cheap. It was really cheap, and the music was very mixed bag. Yeah, it was very mixed up. I wouldn't say it was. It wasn't house or anything like that. It was kind of European dance music.
Yeah, but it's all that European sort of disco, whether it's Italo disco or whether it's...
Yeah.
There was a lot of records that, if you like, were out in Europe that didn't really come over to the UK so much. And there was a different sort of, Yeah,
they didn't feel it in the UK because either it was in a different language or... it wasn't sunny, or, there were summer records.
Well, there are some tunes that sound a lot better if it's sunny and you're on the beach.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you're in a moody club in East London, you're not really up for like some, don't know, pineapple themed dance tune or something, you know what I mean, with a cheesy vocal.
Club Tropicana.
Yeah, exactly. That's not really... that was a massive hit over here, obviously.
I remember that being filmed while I was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right. You're not in the video, are you, Ian?
No, I'm not in the video, but Dale Pike was Tony Pike. Yeah. George Michael and they filmed it at this bar called Tropicana in San Antonio, and then the rest of it was filmed up at Pike's. And I was hanging out with Dale. Dale was Tony's son, and he was a bit of he was a naughty boy as well. Yeah. So we used to gallivant out together and paint the town red.
Sounds like there's a lot of rascals in the...
Oh yeah, and I used to come back there and just crash wherever, by the side of the pool, in one of the rooms, or in one of, we'd always find somewhere.
Yeah.
And then have breakfast in the morning at Martha's breakfast bar. Yeah, it was quite posh then as well. But, you know, I was hanging out with Dale, so...
you were sorted?
Sorted, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that Ibiza back then was, very, very chilled out. It was very slow, moving. There was no...
Apart from the UK boys are trying to kill each other, Yeah,
the English were on one side, and all the Europeans and the...
Well, no, it is true, though, because I've been abroad when that's the times when you... Like you said, in New York, it was like cool to be English and all that, but those are the times you're like, you kind of don't want to be with all the UK crew, or not like you said, not all the football boys wanting to kill each other anyway. You want to be with the cool people, just chilled, and like you said, girls are there and having a good time and blah blah blah. You know.
Well, you know, we used to go to Paradise, and then we would go to Coup, which was on the way to Ibiza town. And that would be a completely different crowd. By that time, all the English people were fast asleep. You know, they'd be completely drunk. You know, by 12 o'clock, most of them would be heading home. You know, with the girls they've picked up, or they've met, or with their girlfriends. So it was a different scene. There's lots of different scenes going on, and there was quite a lot of different clubs in Ibiza town and around, but I don't think the music was any different because there was only 2 record shops on the island.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you get your records? Because you're like a little bit sort of...
Yeah, well, what happened was there was 2 record shops on the island, and as soon as Trevor started playing, and some nights he just didn't feel like doing it, so he'd asked me to do it. So the whole music thing came about, and then every time we went back to England, we'd pick up music. But what we would do is we'd go to places like Rush Release. We'd go to these music record promotion companies, and we'd get a box and tell them we're going to go and promote your record in Ibiza, because, you know, that's where people will come back, and then, you know, they'll all be playing and they want to hear your music. So give us a whole box, not a few. So we'd get the whole box of records, and we'd pack our bags with all these...
I mean, I guess there was that phenomenon of like big holiday records that people would come back and then they're a big hit in the UK because like in June everyone was dancing to, I don't know, some quite cheesy tune probably, but
absolutely. So what we do is we'd go around all the record. We'd go back to England for a week, and we'd print a load of T-shirts or of the latest fashion. And
you didn't still have your Melody Maker pass?
No. We were like copying the Catherine Amnett T-shirts. And then going around the record shops, buying records, and also going around getting all the promotional copies, boxes of them, and then taking them back to Ibiza. And then we'd sell them to the record shops. Yeah, I know they were not for resale, but we used to sell them, and they used to buy them for £2.50 each.
Yeah.
I think it was £2.50, and then they'd sell them on again, you know, to the DJs. So basically, we ended up supplying all the clubs with music, basically, in those years, from 84 to 87.
Okay.
That's what we were doing.
Is there any big tunes you remember, like that you sort of took over there, or was it just a variety of stuff? Or
I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I wasn't really that much into it. Trevor was more into it than me. I mean, it had gone past the whole Simple Minds and ABC and all that.
Yeah.
We'd gone past that scene. But yeah, it was all, you know, dance music of 12 inches that were being pumped out by Rush Release and companies like that. And Paul worked for Rush Release. So we used to get loads of records off of him and Nick and Ian, the guys that ran Rush Release, to bring over to Ibiza. So we'd be selling the records, and our friends would be selling the puff, and you know, we had friends working in the clubs, doing public relations for the clubs, so we got to know everybody after a while, you know. And after,
I mean, it's only a small island, so like, you know.
But we was living on one side, you know. I didn't know anybody really in Ibiza town at that point. You know, that came much later. So up until 87, 86, we were all in Ibiza, in San Antonio, and then we started going to clubs like Amnesia, and beginning of '87, when Amnesia opened, I don't think we ever missed a night. We went there religiously at 12 o'clock. No matter where we were on the island, by 12 o'clock we'd be heading to Amnesia, and we'd be there till 6, from 12 till 6, every single night, apart from Sunday it was shut. Yeah, that's what we did. And by the mid '87, Amnesia became a kind of meeting place and not the main place anymore, not for me, because what happened is after Amnesia we got a Glories, which was just down the road, and it was a bit more harder industrial, a bit more sort of new beat and just harder sound, and we really looked forward to that. And what happened was, in the beginning, Amnesia was the place that we all really looked forward to going to. But to be honest, I used to turn up quite late towards the end of the season, and the party would really start for me in Glories. And I would use the time while I was in Amnesia for the last few hours to just sort of socialise and get my shit together and do all my business, because a lot of things happening going on.
Yes, when you say your business,
especially deals.
Yeah.
And getting everyone organised, getting everyone sorted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And getting all the pills organised and stuff like that for the rest of the night. Because when we first started going through Amnesia, we only took one pill. But when we started going to Glories, then we needed another one.
When did them pills come on the scene for you then in IB4? When did that all sort of start?
'87.
Yeah, so that's when they first started appearing, or?
In the beginning of '87, yeah. And they were produced by chemists that were part of the whole Sanyas, Rajneesh group, So they were coming
What's that?
from...
I don't know what that is.
The Bhagwan, Rajneesh, that whole Sanyas group. He got thrown out of America and went back to India, and then the CIA poisoned him,
Okay. He was one of them...
Osho.
Okay. He was like a cult leader, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they say. He was just he's just a guru, really. But he got cult status. And,
okay. So the pills come via him, or?
Well, not via him personally, but his group. There were a lot of very rich and intelligent and very useful people in his whole group. It was huge. His ashram was massive, and within his crowd were not just pharmacists, but probably rocket scientists and, everything else. So I guess a couple of them must have thought, oh, there's this drug, it's been on the shelf. It was developed in the 50s to bring people back together after the Great Depression. Let's make some of this because it makes you feel really good and sexy, and next minute they're all running around naked, You've probably seen the videos. Well, they were all on ecstasy, no doubt,
Yeah.
Bit different to the Paradise Garage.
Yeah.
But for sure, they were all on ecstasy.
Right.
And basically, that was the beginnings of it all. And
so you're saying that sort of come onto the island at the start?
Come onto the island.
So it wasn't there before then, or?
It wasn't. Well, if it was, I didn't know about it.
I mean, maybe like a few people had it, but it wasn't like a big. It wasn't like a.
Yeah, I mean.
Who knows? Yeah, but.
Yeah, a few people had it, and I tell you why. I know that is because before I started Spectrum, there was a club called the Hug Club, and that was basically based on ecstasy as well. That was a club that was based around it, but it just didn't work. It didn't have the same effect.
Yeah.
It's not just
Where was
about
that? Where was that? The Hub
It was
Club?
at Legends.
Oh yeah, Legends. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Neville and Spike.
Okay.
They'd done the Hug Club, and they'd come across it, and they tried to do what I did, but I always said that it's like a pizza, and you've got all these slices, and each slice represents a different thing: time, place, fashion, music, drug, everything, club. And if you don't have one of these pieces, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And they didn't have every piece.
No.
Spectrum did have every piece. And So anyway, we go back to
Ibiza,
87.
Yeah.
What happened was somehow I think somebody must have given me one of these tablets or one of these capsules one night in Amnesia, very early on. And I'd been running this bar with Trevor, called the Project Bar.
What would they say to you? Just try this, or like?
Yeah, just try this, and it was fucking amazing. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I'm being who I am. I went to find out where you get these things from. I needed to find them, and I did, and I found them, and I found the guy, and I started getting some off of him every day, and going to the club, and the order got bigger and bigger each day as the season went on.
So this was Amnesia, or this was?
No, this was some guy out in the countryside.
Yeah. But I mean, the club that you're going to, or
we were going to Amnesia.
Yeah.
And we were just getting everyone sorted.
Yeah.
And and the intention was obviously to sell them, but once you've had one yourself, you just kind of give them away, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I will say
business isn't,
I will say, I told
very good at business.
I told a story actually to someone about an early Spiral Tri party I was at. That someone was there, just giving us, like, we were all like up from South London on Dunstable Downs, and someone's coming out again with a bag of pills, going, "Yeah, go and have one of these, and just pay me later." And we were like, "Yeah, mate, yeah. We'll pay you later. Of course we will. Yeah. So yeah. But,
and then you're fried, and everything.
And if you're doing some good pills, it's not good business practice to do that at the start of the night. Yeah, exactly. But
so anyway, everything was like that. Every day we'd go. I'd go over to the north of the island, pick up the pills.
Right.
Or every second day, and then.
How did that change the sort of club atmosphere? Like, because obviously you said it was just. Was it a few weeks, and then like suddenly loads of people were doing it? Was it slowly, or did it suddenly overnight suddenly, or do you remember? Or like obviously it's
It just happened. It just sort of blasted into our scene, and everybody started taking them.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was like before. I mean, obviously I remember what it was like in the 84, the early 80s, but 86, 87.
Yeah.
Once we started taking these pills, I don't remember it. I don't remember what it was like before it happened. It just happened. And it happened overnight. And all of a sudden we were all doing this.
Yeah.
Our whole gang. And there was a big gang. We had one whole side of the whole club, where the speakers were. We just took over. And everybody was on it. Yeah. If they weren't on ecstasy, they were on mescaline. And if they weren't on mescaline or ecstasy, then they were hanging out around the bars and they were drinking and sniffing coke.
Yeah, which is different bars.
But everybody was doing something, for sure. And that's just the way it was, but in a nice way.
Yeah.
They were having a laugh and, having a drink, and we were having a dance and having a pill.
People weren't fighting.
No, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was just such a gentle,
yeah,
pure energy there. It was incredible. It was again, it was part of it. And Amnesia had all these elements. It had everything that you needed, and that's why it was such a great club. And of course, it was open air.
So who was DJing there?
Leo Mass warmed up, and then Alfredo played. Most of the clubs back in those days, they were just fincas, which are farmhouses with a wall around it, and that was the club. So you imagine, like, the bars would be part of the house and the toilets, and then there would be the terrace where the DJ would be, and then the dance floor, and then the wall around it, and that would be the club. Most clubs started off like that. They started off like that in the beginning, and then they grew and grew and grew. Do
you remember some of the tunes Alfredo was playing as the pills started kicking in on those nights? Do you remember? Yeah. Was there certain tunes that you remember from that time, or?
Yeah, I mean, there was the anthem,
yeah,
Why by the Wooden Tops, and then there was all the other Balearic tracks like Elkin and Nelson, and the famous Balearic Beat album that had the Spectrum Eye on the front. Yeah.
I know you're not so much like a music train spotter as maybe I am sometimes, but no, that's cool.
No, I was never really a DJ.
Yeah.
And even when I did DJ for Trevor in Ibiza, he basically told me what to play, and I just played the tracks. I mean, there was no varied speed back then and all that stuff. And it didn't last very long. I was the promoter, and I've always been more of an organiser and a promoter than a music guy. But I know what good music is.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think you know how to create a good time, and you're good at socialising, and you're good at speaking to people. It sounds very good at networking.
Yeah.
And those are brilliant skills for a promoter, to be honest.
Yeah, and I know who's the best DJs and who aren't, you know?
Exactly.
And I have to put it together.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So it's all popping off there because, like I said, suddenly the pills are coming and everyone's, like I said, couldn't remember what it was like before then. So.
And Alfredo had his record box, you know, and it was Alfredo's record box and the pills and the place, and that's all we needed, you know. And it went off. It went off in a big way, and we almost formed a little cult of our own. You know, we became family. You know, and we found our spots. It's like when you're on E in a club, you find a spot that you're comfortable with, and you basically dance in that spot every single night that you go back. So if you go back one night and somebody else is standing there, it can be a bit irritating.
Right.
And I remember the night that, you know, the night where the famous four, these DJs came to Ibiza and brought the Balearic Beat back to London.
All right, well, look, tell us about this, because this is a story that's been told loads of times.
Yeah. And
it's probably been told with a lot of bullshit and a lot of fake stuff. So you were there.
Yeah.
And you were involved in this, so tell us what actually did happen.
What happened was Paul went to Ibiza for his birthday. And on the night of his birthday, they'd been out there for a week, I think. Johnny Walker, a few other of his mates, and Danny Rampling and Nicky Holloway and Paul. And I went up to his villa on the night of his birthday, and I took a big ghetto blaster and one of Alfredo's tapes. And I took with me Nancy and Lisa Loud and a few other of our crew. We all went up there, and I set up the system, I put on the music, and we were all dancing away, and they were like, what's going on there? And I said, yeah, you should come with us. So I put them in my Jeep, and I had an honorary membership, like a clear glass, but it was plastic, clear plastic with the pyramids on. I could go into Amnesia anytime I wanted in the back door, and I could take a carload of people. So I took them down there, and I wonder sometimes if I hadn't, what would you know, because they're all playing hip hop and going to the wag and stuff like that, and playing a rare groove. But I took them down there, and I gave them their first pill. And I remember this night really, really well, because Nicky Holloway was standing in my spot, and I kept nudging him out.
Yeah.
And I was nudging him out, and I was trying to get him out, and I didn't really like him anyway. I didn't know him. I didn't know Danny.
Yeah.
Danny Rampling, and I didn't.
He wasn't
know
always
Johnny
nice,
Walker.
cheerful, Nicky Holloway. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know any of these guys. They were Paul's friends.
Yeah.
You know, and to be honest with you, in this world there are people who are real creative people, and then there's people who just copy people. There are people who make records and make music. And there's people like Pete Tong that just sit in his office, and then people with real talent come in and they give it to him, and he takes it as his own and he puts it out on his label. And so there are people that take other people's ideas and take other people's glory and try to make it their own. And they have they have no talent at all. They haven't got a creative bone in their body. And then you've got people that really do have, that are creative and are magical. And I find all those guys not really magical and not very creative. They just, they just sort of copy. You know?
I heard this story, and again, I've sort of talked to people about this, and I'm not sure how true it is, but that a few of that crew, I think Pete Tong might have been one of them, and they were sort of really anti all this sort of disco sort of stuff. And this was
Right.
during the rare groove sort of scene.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, obviously, the acid house stuff
Right.
come in, and then suddenly it's all like, nah, fucking hell, it's all like,
Well, Tongy wasn't involved. He was a late starter because he was sitting in FFL. He was sitting in London Records, scratching his head when we came in with that, all the Balearic stuff, and actually let them use the artwork for Spectrum to do the Balearic Beats volume, which is still one of the biggest compilations, biggest sellers out there.
I guess this is why I'm asking you, because like, obviously, like I said, you were genuinely there. And some of these things is a retrospective. People try and pretend that they did all this stuff that they didn't necessarily do. And I do remember those times about, like I said, I know a lot of people were really dismissive of house music. And there's a famous stories about Noel and Maurice Watson at Delirium. I used to go to Delirium a lot.
Yeah.
And they used to have bottles thrown at them in '86 because they were playing house.
Right.
And like the hip hop crew would be like, "You're playing gay music."
It was one of the first house clubs in London.
Yeah.
But like basically, this story that these four guys went to Ibiza and brought back the Balearic Beat is a load of bollocks. Basically, they went to Ibiza. I took them down to Amnesia, and they stole Alfredo's record box, and they stole his set, and they came back to London and started playing it. All they did is went down to City Sounds and to Groove Records and try and source the tracks off of tapes that they'd bought or they'd acquired, and they all played the same thing, and they're all still playing the same thing 40 years later. It's rather boring, I think. They are all great tunes, but 40 years later, it's a joke.
Yeah.
I've moved on. I moved on very quickly.
No,
but
sure.
some people are still playing the same music they were playing in 86, 87.
Yeah.
I guess some people are, it's like anything. There are people that experience punk and they're still today punks, or rock and roll, and they're still into rock and roll, or soul.
People like that in the rave scene.
Stuck,
people like in the rave scene as well. There's people I know, some of the retro rave stuff, they'll just play tunes from 92 and 93.
Yeah.
And again, I love all that music. I've got loads of that music.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do play that myself.
Okay.
But not all the bloody time.
No.
I'm not... I know what you mean. People get stuck in one...
Yeah, people get stuck in one genre and they don't move on. I bounce.
Yeah.
I bounce with the times and move on.
Yeah. With
new sounds and developments in music.
All right. So you took them down there, and like I said, obviously they went back and blah blah blah. So what?
The next day they got on flights and went back to London, and I remember coming back a couple of weeks later, and I had Alfredo's tape, and I gave it to Paul, and I said, Paul, go out and buy these records, get them. I don't know what their names are, all of them, but some of them you can figure out. We didn't have Shazam back in those days, so
no,
he had to go and find out what they were, and he did it. Yeah. And I decided to have a party when we eventually came back to London after having the most amazing time in Ibiza that season.
Yeah. So you've been out in Ibiza for 3 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you come back to London? You just
Well, it was the end of the season.
Yeah.
And it was time to leave.
Yeah.
And that's what we did every season.
Oh, okay.
It was time to go back. But this season was particularly special because we'd been on ecstasy the whole summer. I mean, we'd had the best time. And
suppose you managed to go home, like.
Yeah, and there was cute boys and girls from Italy and France and every country in Europe and beyond. Yeah. And we all met there. It was a melting pot. It was unbelievable. I mean, and every single night we went back and back, and we all got to know each other, and it was like, it was incredible. It was, when we had to leave, people were crying. The end of Amnesia, the last night, they were like crying and couldn't believe it. That it was all over and until the next year. But the next year would have been 88. But in 87, I remember like slowly sort of unwinding and getting in my Jeep.
When does the season end in Ibiza? When is that? August, September?
September, October.
Yeah.
Then.
Okay.
Yeah. It would have been the end of September, October back in those days.
Okay, yeah.
And then you would leave in November. We'd leave the island because it was getting empty, and a lot of people left because there was no flights, and a lot of people left because it's just really going to be difficult to to get back. But if you're going to drive back, you had to leave by before Christmas, unless you were staying there for Christmas. So anyway, by November I decided to drive back, and I got back and I gave Paul that tape and I said, listen, go out and get these tunes. I want to do a night, I want to do one of these nights, here. So he said, well, you could do it at mine and Trevor's club, Ziggy's in Streatham. They had a club, it was called the Project Club. And I think it was called the Project because of the bar that me and Trevor had. Me and Trevor were running a bar in San Antonio all this time, right up to 87. But that summer, and it was, and the bar was the Project Bar. It's basically, everybody would go to the Cafe Del Mar in the daytime, all the English people. And I'm not talking about the English people who are on holiday, the thugs. I'm talking about the English people that were there for the season, that were on interrail cards. Yeah. And, they were just out there to work. And then in the evening, they'd all come to my bar. And that was a meeting point. A lot of them didn't drink alcohol, but they were all there figuring out where to get some puff, where to get their pill, and how they're going to get into Amnesia and how they're going to get there.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And it became that point where everybody met up first, and then I'd obviously squeeze as many people into my Jeep as possible. And people would get the bus or whatever, however they could get there.
No, you need a spot like that, a little rendezvous.
Yeah, so
spot.
that was our bar, Trevor and my bar. But halfway through 87, I was hanging out with Adam, my friend Adam, and Nancy and Lisa and all that crowd, and I wasn't hanging out with the usual crowd that were hanging out in San Antonio that were just drinking and sniffing still, and chasing women and stuff like that every night, looking for birds.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in that. I wasn't interested in that. So I gave the bar back to Trevor. I just said, you can have it. I don't want nothing. I'm just walking away, but I'm not coming to work anymore. So find somebody else to work.
Okay.
And I just moved into this apartment with my mates, and I didn't really see Trevor much after that. Not that year anyway. And I started hanging out with all that crowd, that whole Balearic crowd.
Yeah.
Our crowd that started the future.
So, all right, so you come back to London, end of the season, 87.
Yeah. And then we put on this party in Streatham. And I bring Alfredo over to play.
Oh, okay, he come over, did he?
I brought him over.
Yeah, nice.
I paid his ticket and I paid him to play. And I sold the tickets.
What did he think of Streatham compared to...
Well, I'll tell you what happened. So Paul and Trevor were doing a night there anyway at Ziggy's called The Project. And it went till 12. Yeah? And then the licence ran. Obviously it was shut.
Yeah. It's not Ibiza licensing,
No. And then what we did is we got everyone out, and then we opened the side door and we let everybody in, all our crowd.
Okay.
Yeah? And then we kicked off again. And of all the people to park in a stupid place, it was Johnny Walker, working at London Records or FFFR, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He was in the business, but he was so high on ecstasy. We were going, whoever it is that owns the white van, please can you move it? He parked it right in the loading bay in Safeways opposite. And so the truck was trying to get in to dock to unload all the food. And of course the police were called.
Oh, right.
And the police came and found out that we were having a party. And just as Alfredo had gone on, just as Alfredo was putting on Why by the Wooden Tops, our anthem, the police kicked down the door and came in and raided the place. It was like a movie.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
No. Wow.
It was, I heard why, and then boom, and then the police were in there.
Beer everywhere.
Yeah, it was madness. And it was Johnny Walker and his mate who had parked in the parking bay.
Right.
I mean, anyway, they were so fucking high, they didn't give a shit. But it was me that, done all the hard work. And that's the thing about these parties and when you're doing things like that, you always get idiots that think they don't, they don't have to apply, the rules don't apply to them,
Yeah.
And I try, and that's part of my job, of filtering those idiots out.
No, well,
and putting
this is the hard thing about promoters, isn't it? There's always something crazy happens that you have to be dealing with.
Well, I'll tell you what, that night, it broke my heart that night. I mean, we were all on it. I'd actually flown to Amsterdam to get the pills and get everything sorted. So much had gone into it.
Yeah.
And I don't think Johnny Walker even knows to this day. Well, he does know. He knew afterwards. But, a lot of people don't know that at the time. But from that day, I always said to myself, that is never going to happen to me again.
Yeah.
I am never going to let that happen to me again. One of my events just blow up like that.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
What was the afters of all the police coming in then?
Nothing. They just threw us out, and I think the guy.
So they didn't really know that you. Obviously, they was maybe a bit more naive about what.
Exactly they had no idea. They just thought we were having an afters.
Exactly, just boozing up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They had no idea. Basically, they kicked us all out. The guy would have got a fine or something like that, and we'd have had to pay that, and the end of the story. No big deal. He would have got a warning or something. But I think he knew the risks.
Yeah.
But we never went back there. I mean, I never went back there.
No.
I think Paul and Trevor continued doing their nights. But what happened was that winter, Paul and I decided to go to Hong Kong for the winter, for a holiday, Christmas and New Year. And we went there. I think he was DJing. He was working. I remember the disco mix, the DMC mix competition was on. Chad Jackson was the winner. He was there. We were at the event. I was with the guy called Alan who was running it. And I was in this club on Christmas Eve. And I was just kicking this piece of paper around. And I kicked it over. And it had some really crazy writing on it, and I picked it up and I was like, I went to somebody and I said to them, what does this mean? It's in Chinese. And they said, the future. And I said, the future. So I put it in my pocket and I brought it back to England.
Yeah.
Paul and I continued up to the Great Wall of China, and we spent Christmas and New Year in Hong Kong and Macau, and we continued every Christmas and New Year after that for many years, going away together to Tokyo, to Brazil, to the Amazon, and places like that. That was a good thing, having a good friend to do all that stuff. But anyway, that year I came back, and I said to somebody, I want you to write the future and design the first flyer and put the Chinese writing next to it. Yeah. So we just done it in pronto print or something like that. And Paul said to me, listen, I know a guy called Kevin Millins, and he's a promoter at Heaven, and he could get us the back room of Heaven, and for 300 quid. But if you want to open the back door in Hungerford Lane, it's an extra 100. I said, no, we haven't got it. In fact, we haven't even got the 300 quid. So Nancy had to get on the phone in one of them red phone boxes with her address book and start calling everybody in, saying, we're having a party tomorrow night, we're having a party, And I got Nancy on the phone doing all that in the phone box. And
so that was in the sound shaft, wasn't it?
It was in the sound shaft.
I used to go parties in there back in the day.
And we needed 60 people.
Right.
At £5 each.
Yeah.
So they actually all met outside, and we collected the money off of everybody outside because we didn't have any money, literally.
Yeah.
And we got 100. So I pocket the difference.
Right.
I give Paul Churchill, who was the manager of Heaven, 300 quid,
Yeah.
and I ran through Delirium with Paul's record boxes into the sound shaft.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Noel Watson before.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we ran through his club.
Yeah.
And because Paul and I had been going there actually.
Yeah.
Prior, it was the only club playing house music.
Well, do you know what? Yeah, because 1985, I used to go Pyramid, which was where they played house on a Wednesday,
Right.
and that's meant to be the first club in the UK to play house music.
Okay.
And that was Colin Faber.
Yes.
So I mean, I used to go Heaven in '85, and
Yeah.
'86 and '87.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I think I was in New York when your night started, so I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember.
So yeah, you're doing Future anyway. Let's go back to that.
but-
Yeah.
You know, so we went down. We were going down to Delirium because it was, you know, it was very on that tip.
Delirium was a great club.
Yeah, but we ran through on this Thursday night, and we just sat up, and as soon as the first record came on, it was Nancy playing and Paul. Everybody just couldn't, you know, they just couldn't climb the walls high enough. They were trying to get up the walls. There was a swing in there, just like in Amnesia.
Yeah.
It had spiral staircase, and it was all the Roundshaw lot and all the new friends of friends, you know, and we filled the place. After a couple of weeks, it was chock-a-block, and we could open the back door, and that club ran for 3 years. You know, it ran from 87, beginning of 87, end of 87, all the way through till 89, 90, you know.
That back room was a really good spot to party, yeah.
Yeah, I think it ran until the beginning of 1990. I'd left by then, but every week, you know, it was just chock-a-block, and then people from the fashion scene, from the trendy scene, from this scene, from that scene, people started hearing about it. People trying to get in, you know. As I said, you know, people like Weatherall and the Boys Own and Simon Eccles, and then people started coming down there. Lots of people who became somebody or something a lot later all started coming down there, and I didn't know any of them basically. I didn't know much. I didn't know many people at all. I was just busy running the place and then getting on it. But it was a great club. I remember about 3 months into it, 2 or 3 months into it, I had to go to Spain, and I'd given it to my friend Danny and Adam to look after. They were living with me in my flat, and I said, listen, you know, but they both got completely off their heads. So much so, they got followed home by the police. They were being really obvious and loud and carefree, and the police had a van outside our flat for a week, and they must have had microphones in there or whatever, how they do it, and they were waiting for Mr. Big to come back from Spain. Me, and I had nothing. I was just going there for a holiday. Yeah? And I was coming back. I had no pills or anything like that, but they thought the big shipment was coming back.
Just had a straw donkey or whatever.
Yeah, I came back with 2 girls from Spain, and unfortunately, when we got back, any drugs that were in the house, I'd managed to actually take out and put in the garage, and they didn't even see it, because 10 minutes later, when I got back from the garage, they kicked the door down, and there was nothing in the flat. Apart from the 2 Spanish girls I'd come with had some drugs in their purse. So they got taken to the police station and kicked out the country.
What?
They never got to see the future,
Oh no, gutted.
And they were our friends from Amnesia,
you
know.
Oh, that's awful.
But Adam had some previous outstanding I didn't know about, and they took him in. Danny had a little bit of hash, so he had to spend the night in jail.
Fucking hell.
And there was some speed in the kitchen.
No, it's not exactly like drug bust of the century, is it? Like
no,
they said like Mr. Big, yeah.
Yeah, no, they'd screwed it up. I'm not going to tell you what I took out of and put in the garage exactly.
No, that's fine.
But
fine.
If they'd found that, then they would have done all right. But they didn't, and I'm surprised they missed it. They were supposed to have had the place under observation. They didn't. I actually came back from the airport with the girls, got into my car that was parked outside, and it was a big old-fashioned Mercedes, one of them old ones.
Right.
With the gold wings and everything.
they were.
And I drove it off.
Okay.
Went to my mate's garage, put what I needed to, and came back.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got back, then they kicked the door in.
Right.
So they must have thought that I'd gone to do something and bring back the drugs, but they got it all wrong. So anyway, we managed to get past all that. You know, word was out. It just kind of, I guess it just made it even more exciting. The whole thing, you know, it was like hot news, you know, it just went.
Well, you survived it. You weren't, you know, so I guess you kind of feel invincible sometimes, don't you?
You know, it all rippled down through the ranks.
You probably got a little bit lucky and a lot lucky, and then so you think
the next week it was packed, you know.
Right.
And then I guess from there it was getting so busy. I just thought, you know, we need to do something else. So I said to Paul, he was my partner at Future. We were 50-50. We'd pay for it and we'd split the profit after we paid everybody. And I said to him, I want to open a bigger club. But he said, no, I don't want to do it. You know, I said, okay, well, I'll pay you as a music coordinator. I'm going to take Heaven over. So I went and spoke to the management there. They could only offer me a Monday night. And I thought, fucking hell, Monday night, what am I going to do? Monday night is the night that nobody goes out, right? Nobody goes out on a Monday night. But I thought about it. And I thought, nothing's stopping this. And the people that do this don't even work, right? And if they do get involved, they're going to give up their jobs.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to fit gas meters safely on a Tuesday morning.
No.
Right. So I took it. And I paid Paul because eventually, in the beginning, it was just the main room. But eventually, we had 3 rooms and 3 DJs in each room, right? So there's 9 DJs and an act on stage. So Paul became the music coordinator and he was paid accordingly. And I took on Heaven on a Monday night, and it took about 5 weeks of just getting 300-400 people in there, and then it went bang.
Yeah.
I remember going round.
Because it's a big old venue, Heaven.
It's huge.
And when you've got them, like I said, the 3 rooms.
Yeah.
I like.
It's nearly 2,000 people.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So
like
300 is not empty, but it's quiet.
Yeah,
as you
right,
started.
we opened up the downstairs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, in April the 11th, 88, I opened Spectrum. Johnny and Paul, Nancy, Roger and Farley upstairs in the Star Bar. And then we had DJs up in the VIP. And that ran for a year before we had to close it down. You know, and we closed it down because the press, all the bad press surrounding it. And
so how did you find all that when suddenly all that, if you like, it's gone from this little thing that only a few people know about in Ibiza to suddenly it's all over the tabloids, and it's all like, I'm not sure when the tabloids really kicked in, but that's 88, was it? Like, you know,
88.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Didn't take them long.
No, so, you know, and obviously there's that, you know, the famous bit with the Sun did the Acid House t-shirt, and then about a month later they're like this, you know.
Yeah, this guy, he like blagged me. He told me he was writing this really positive thing, but really he just was doing this really tabloid.
He was doing an article on you, or?
Yeah, he interviewed me.
Yeah.
But it was all negative.
Yeah.
He told me it wasn't, but it was. It was. And they'd done a retraction. But the retractions are always tiny, aren't they?
No.
Compared to the actual.
What were they saying? Just like evil club with drugs and
all that.
Yeah,
you know, nothing positive.
Yeah.
Nothing positive at all, and they just wanted, you know, it's Richard Branson's club.
Yeah.
They wanted to link him to the drug.
Right.
Yeah, and because it was our fault, really, it was my fault. When you buy all these ecstasy tablets, there's always a load of powder at the bottom, broken ones.
Right.
And it was starting to mount up.
Yeah.
So I said to Adam, why don't we crush all this up and cap it up and then just sell it as Spectra?
Right.
I didn't think. I just said it.
Where were you selling this? Like
in the club.
Oh my god! Yeah.
And then obviously somebody had bought one of those that worked for a newspaper.
So what was it? Was it a capsule?
Yeah, it was a capsule.
Right.
But it had all the Californian MDMA in it. Right.
How much was the Spectra? Did you
Same
remember?
price.
Right, which is what?
15 quid.
15 quid or something. Yeah.
And then
right.
they thought it was Spectra,
Yeah.
and they put 2 and 2 together, Richard Branson in the mix,
Right.
and there you had it, Tabloid.
Yeah.
Richard Branson selling a drug in his club, named after the club, and it was my fault as well. I shouldn't have done it. Anyway, we had to shut it down for a couple of weeks, and it was Club with No Name for a while.
Right.
And then we reopened as the Land of Oz. But, as we're Spectrum, Future was the first Balearic club in London, playing music right across the board, from rock to pop, from U2 to Michael Jackson to, Spectrum was the first acid house club. You talk about Delirium as a house club, but it wasn't an acid house club.
I wouldn't say Delirium. I wasn't really saying Delirium was a house club, but I was saying like.
But they played a lot.
They'd mix in some house from about 85, 86, because that music hadn't defined itself so much.
Yeah.
But like I said, some of the hip hop crowd like were really anti it because they saw it as gay music.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, why are you playing this sort of gay music? And that was and again, this is what I was saying about some of the DJs that I've heard. And again, name no name. We sort of mentioned some of the names, but they were sort of anti the house stuff because they were more like, we're more into funk and soul and not this gay music. And then obviously the acid stuff come out, and then suddenly everyone's like, I love acid music.
Yeah, well, we were playing house and acid house. And I remember seeing an article, a video interview with Fabio and Groove Rider. And they were like, they managed to get into Spectrum one night, and they were like blown away because it's exactly what they wanted. And then they went to work for Rage.
Well, do you know what? I know both of them did pirate radio in Brixton, and they played loads of old house and acid house. They come through all that scene, and I think I've even talked to Fabio about this, and all the clubs. Obviously they become famous for breaks and jungle and blah blah blah. But they come through the house and the Detroit and Chicago. They're totally into that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone worth their salt, DJ, you've gone through that scene. Like all my mates, we've all gone through all that scene. We went to bloody it all. So I love my funk, but I love my mad acid house. And so I mean, why wouldn't you?
So, Spectrum was the first acid house club where you had like famous people were turning up to Spectrum. People like Prince would be flying in from New York because he'd heard it was like the newest club on the, via the record companies, via the press. Just random people would be turning up. So people were rubbing shoulders with celebrity, and there was a lot of undercover celebrity in there. And then when I opened up Land of Oz, every week we had a band on stage, starting with Snap, I Got the Power. Imagine seeing that live. And then Robin S. or KLF, What Time Is Love. And it was just brilliant. Every single week we had a live act on stage, and upstairs in the VIP wasn't just a DJ, it was Youth, Jimmy Courty and Alex Patterson, and they all formed up there because it was called The White Room, and that was the name of the first KLF album.
So when it changed from Spectrum to Land of Oz, was that more you just changing it because like you had loads of grief because it was called Spectrum?
No,
it was trying to move it into like a different style.
Yeah, it just moved on naturally.
Okay,
it naturally moved on, and we brought in this live element. So the next minute you had punters rubbing shoulders with artist and celebrity. It just changed everything, and it was an amazing club. It had everything. I mean, it lacked nothing at all. Every base was covered.
I mean, I guess it wasn't. Again, Heaven's a big club, so you're not like say like some old club where people would be elitist on the door. Were you elitist on the door?
Not really.
I mean, obviously, like any club, like you said, you don't want no idiots who are like coming in.
We only wanted people that looked like they were part of our. We weren't letting people in. Generally, who didn't look like they fitted. Unless they were special and they were known by the doorman. So I had special doormen working on the door, Barry and Jack from Victory PR, and Barry from Café de Paris and Enter the Dragon. Barry the Hat, his name is.
Right.
And they seem to know everybody. They've been doing that gig for a long time. But this again, it took it to the next level. Land of Oz was just amazing. And I know I've spoken to promoters who have come down there looking, and what they're looking for is something that's missing. Because then what they do is they go out and they do what I'm doing, but with what's missing. And then they've got something better than I have. But with Land of Oz and Spectrum, there was nothing missing.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so they're looking for the loopholes, but there weren't any.
Yeah.
There weren't any potholes to be had. So
in one way, you'd had this experience from all these different sort of nights from New York, from Ibiza, and I guess obviously you had help with the stuff that was going on in the club, shall we say, like the naughty stuff, but at the same time, you'd observed all these nights, like I said, New York, Ibiza. You knew what worked.
Everything I learnt and saw at the Paradise Garage and every other club, I put into Spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, every detail that I'd learnt along the way.
Because I will say as well, like with Heaven, like I mean, again, when I went to New York, again I was sort of London clubber, but a lot of London clubs didn't have the sound system. And obviously Heaven was the one club in London from back in the day that always had a brilliant, because it was mostly a gay club, and they almost did it like, maybe they weren't copying the Paradise Garage, but it was like a New York club.
It was copied. It was Global Village. They copied the Paradise Garage. I spoke to the directors. The Richard Long sound system. They wanted it to be exactly the same. It had a 40k turbo sound system, 14 colour Krypton laser. It was the best club in London.
No, exactly.
And it had a 20, because it was in Westminster, right down at Whitehall. It actually had a 24-hour license.
Oh right, yeah.
And to be honest with you, there's this whole thing going on with the gay scene and the soldiers and the security guards and the parliament and and you know, this whole public school, you know, there's this whole scene going on there, which I don't know too much about, but I know it exists. And that's why Heaven had a 24-hour license.
Well, I do remember back in the 80s, which is like a bit like, you know, like the Berghain thing, like, you know, not that many people were taking photos in clubs, but if anyone did have a camera, they were literally like, no, because they could blackmail people, basically. You know, that, because the funny thing, when I used to go Pyramid on the Wednesday, the house night, that was the mixed night on the Wednesday, so like, you know, straight people were allowed in, as long as you're not an idiot, like, and you know that there's going to be gay people there. People
went to clubs to have fun and take drugs and have a good time. You don't want someone taking a picture of you.
No, but you'd have people in there who'd look like a bank manager. They'd have like a tie. They'd obviously just come out, you know, and they're there, and as wanted to try and pick someone up, and fair enough. But they weren't. They look like your bank manager or something like that.
To be honest with you, you've got these public school boys that are like work in the corporate world, and that's how they dress. And they don't know any other way. They get up in the morning and they put a shirt and a tie on. And it doesn't matter where they are. They could be on a beach and that's what they wear. You know, that's just they might take the tie off. But that's the way they dress. You know, and they're certainly not going to go home and put on a pair of baggy trousers and a t-shirt because their wife might spot them heading out the door.
Again, like I said,
where are you going?
Well, I said that was always the funny thing, having you'd get this real sort of mixture of stuff, and like I said, I was genuinely there for the music, really, you know what I mean? But obviously it was still like Heaven, and so, you know.
Yeah, well, you got Whitehall round the corner.
Yeah.
You know, I heard stories of some of the management from Heaven going down to Horse
Guards Parade.
Horse Guards Parade, you know, and having a bit of fun with the guards down there and coming back
with the Queen's Cavalry.
Yeah, with the Queen's Cavalry in his lunch break.
Right.
You know, telling me all about it. I'll be like, Paul. You know.
Well,
He said, shut up, darling. What's wrong with you? Come down there with me. They all camp. One of the great thing about Heaven is that all the staff were gay. David Inches was the boss. He was fantastic. He'd been working in New York. He was a New Yorker, and Paul Churchill was just lots of fun. And the bar staff were just brilliant. You know, everybody was fun, and it was the best club in London. When you had clubs like Shum and the Trip popping up afterwards, The Shun was in a fitness centre, for Christ's sake.
Do you want to talk about them? Do you want to talk about them rival sort of nights?
Not really. All I want to say is, it was my mates going down there selling pills, and if I really didn't want them to exist, I could have stopped that.
Yeah.
And it would have been just a fitness centre with a load of smoke and nothing much else.
Yeah.
Without the E, it really wouldn't have worked. But the scene was growing and growing and growing. So I was actually happy that people were taking the surplus off of nights like Future. And when Danny Rampling opened Shum on a Thursday night, initially I was a bit pissed off that someone would do that on the same night as me. But I thought, well, Future only holds 350, and the scene's getting to a point where it needs another club. So I never went. I never went to any of those clubs. I had my own clubs to run.
Yeah, no, you were busy.
I was so busy just doing my own thing. I went to Shum once, I think, and Jenny, the second time I tried to get in with some friends, she wouldn't let me in. So,
she wouldn't let you in?
Because it was tiny, the place.
Yeah.
I must have gone very late.
Yeah, no, I mean...
anyway, she had her reasons. She didn't let me in. I never went back. I didn't really want to go back. It was just like... I kind of smartened up a little bit by then. I was kind of wearing nicer clothes. I kind of like hung up the Chevignon dungarees and the Converse, and I'd started...
Did you go down Clink Street or anything like that?
Loved it.
Because to me, Clink Street was like a raw acid house club.
Listen, when Future was going on before Spectrum, Clink Street, Paul Rip and Mr. C were doing Clink Street, and I loved it because it was real. It was very techno, and it was hard, and it was industrial. No,
to me, that you were saying that club in Ibiza that you went to.
Yeah, Glories.
It's
very much on that.
When you said it like that, because in one way, when again I always go back to the pyramid in heaven. But like that was the point. Like downstairs, they play a bit of house, Colin Faver, but upstairs it will be like Nitzer Ebb and all the. It was all the alternative, but it was all that pumping electronic body music, sort of, which I love. I still love,
Paul Riff's still doing it. He's got Plink Plonk, that label. Plink Plonk. They're still making that. They're still at it doing their nights as well.
Was one of them linked up with Groove Records at all?
I'm not sure.
Oh, because it's a long story, but I remember with an old girlfriend of mine, and I was round her house, and this guy was there who worked at Groove Records, and he was like, "Oh, you got to come down our new night. It's at Clink Street." And we turned up, but we turned up at 1 a.m, and it was packed, and we couldn't get in, and we were like, "We're on the guest list," and they're like, "No one else is coming in."
There was another night at the car wash we used to go to.
I remember the car wash. Yeah.
Remember the car wash?
Yeah, I do.
Tank.
Yeah.
Tank used to do the car wash.
Right.
It was a bit like an after hour. It was like one of the first raves, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Musically, it wasn't the same as Clink Street. Clink Street was serious. And then we'd done this massive party for Time Out in the Big Top on the South Bank. And it was also on a Monday night.
This was in 1988.
Yeah. And we put all the DJs over there and played, and then we all ran over the bridge.
Okay.
And then went to Spectrum.
Yeah. Amazing.
It was good times. It was really good times back then. And then, by the end of 89, you had, things like Biology and Sunrise and all these...
Yeah, all the ones started happening in the fields.
I went to the first Sunrise, and that was it. I never went to any other. I never went to a rave or the M25. By the end of 89, I was getting a bit tired of it anyway. It was... I'd had two years of partying in Ibiza and really taking, really on my own, dancing all night, taking pills and having a really full-on time. And then 3 years in London, so that was 5 years. And
well, no, it does take its toll.
Yeah, you can't do it forever.
No, you can't. Yeah.
So by the end of 89, Future was still running. We'd went through Spectrum, and we'd opened Land of Oz, and it was running, and we had some amazing nights there. By the end of it, I was living in Russell Square by the British Museum, and one night I went home from the club, and two guys followed me home, and they were set up actually by two I found out later they were set up by two of my original sort of gang back in Ibiza in '87. You know, two guys that were part of our posse, dancing with us and hanging out with us. Basically very jealous that I was doing well, and they wanted some of what I had. So they set these two guys up to come and rob me, and they did. I opened the door to them, and they squirted ammonia in my face, and put a knife down the side of my neck, and I was basically just a mess on the floor. And they robbed my flat. They stole everything in there, from Cartier watches and like family heirloom jewelry and gifts and money, a lot of money, and everything else that was in the flat. And I managed to call my security at Heaven and come and pick me up. And they took me up to the Royal Free. And it just got a bit messy. And the people that were the original crew went like that, bam, and it was kind of got tired too. Now the clubs were full of all new people, and for me, once that hardcore had kind of dissolved, I didn't really think there was much left for me. It was just a business.
It wasn't a secret. It wasn't a secret society.
It just turned into this business, and I kind of, I was in hospital for 3 months. I couldn't see. I was blind. I had bandage around my eyes.
Okay.
My eyes are still damaged. I'm having one of my left eye. I'm having a cornea transplant soon, but it made me think. Thank God I had a really good assistant secretary taking care of everything while I was in hospital. But it was not a nice thing. It kind of went against everything that we believed in. We were supposed to be all about love, and there's these people like trying to kill me, and we talked about the whole football thing, and eventually people kind of wanted a bit of the action, So
I mean, there was that dark side of the rave scene,
yeah.
And I've talked about it a bit on other podcasts. How there was that. Obviously, like I said, there's lots of money going on. There's lots of drugs being sold. Yeah. A lot of them parties back in the day, people were paying cash on entry. There was bags of money and stuff like that.
Yeah, places like some of those raves, people would actually like try and rob them, They try and rob them at the end of the night once they
some of them places
Tyson Street and all these kind of places.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember.
So they used to shut down early and put a cage at the door and not let anyone in. And that was a horrible. Thank God I didn't see any of that stuff. I only saw the nice thing until I got attacked. I spent 3 months in hospital, and then I moved down to this house in the New Forest, and that I'd actually bought. And I used to just come up on a Monday, drive up, do the club, and then go back down there. But, I'm not an English squire, I'm just me, and it just got boring. I used to go down there horse riding, come back, and then, do the club.
But, it was a pretty, it was a bit of a shock.
It was nice.
But it's a shock to the system and your mental health, though, like being attacked like that. I mean, and as much as you recover, maybe you recover, 3 months is a decent time in the hospital. Yeah. But obviously, that's the physical part of it. But obviously, the mental part is going to hit you pretty hard as well.
Yeah, it did. And, the love had gone. The reason had gone, and I remember coming up to London one night at the end of '89, and I've been sharing a flat with Lisa Loud, and we were best mates at that time. She just started working for 10 Records, Virgin, and we shared a flat. And I remember getting in my car and driving to St Paul's Cathedral, and we got out. We just parked the car next to the steps, and we walked up the steps.
That's not your cathedral, by the way, is it? That's not.
No, it's not.
Because funny enough, when you messaged me yesterday, I was standing outside St Paul's, and then it come up on my phone, the message here, St Paul, and I was just thinking a little bit of,
I think they named it after me.
It was, yeah. You didn't do a rave in there, did you? You didn't do acid night in there, no.
So anyway, we walked up the stairs, and I was tears in my eyes, and I kind of didn't know what to say to her, but I said, Lise, I'm ending all this. I'm finished. I've had enough. I just don't feel right anymore. I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. You know, I need to change. I need to do something different. And that was the last night. I think Heaven continued doing it for a while, but they couldn't do it without me. But I went and I packed my bags, and about 2 weeks later I got on a flight, and I walked away from my house, gave it to some homeless people, walked away from my car, walked away from everything that I had in London, and just gave up everything, and left most of the things that I had, and just packed a backpack, and got on a flight, went to India.
Wow.
Yeah, I took all the money that I had and sold my flat and lived off that. And I was just out there for about 6 months, travelling all around India. And then eventually I got to Goa. It was Christmas, I think, New Year. Got into a party, and I knew a few people from the old days. You know, I told you about the Forum in Croydon in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mate Mike Maguire, he was part of Midnight Groove with Tony Thorpe. Yeah, and he worked in Groove Records, and then he worked at Greyhound, the distribution company. He was out there, and a few other mates of his, and I got to meet all these mates.
Right.
And yeah, we just.
Did you know they were there?
Yeah, Mike told me to go to India.
Yeah.
You know, and but I didn't go straight to Goa. I just travelled all around India first. I got there 5 months later, and I got there and contacted them and went to this party, and I knew they would be there eventually. So they got there eventually. Mike was DJing out there, and somebody stuck some acid in my mouth, and I ended up walking around. Goa Gill was playing, and I'm walking around this banyan tree, and it's like a circle. The dance floor is a circle, and there's a tree in the middle, and it was kind of weird, especially when you're on acid, you know. And I'm trying to figure out this music, this electronic, trancey music that they're playing, and it took a while, but then I got it, you know. And straight away I thought, new drug, new sound, electronic. This is like the next step, you know. And that's what came to me, and that's the way it went. And I worked with it, you know. I came back to London after a long holiday there. I met some people, and I came back to London, and I met Youth, and I started working with him. We opened the first trance label called Dragonfly Records in Brixton. And we had a studio there. We put people in, and we'd make records, make tracks there, and put them onto compilations and release artist albums. All trance. Dragonfly, Order Ordinata, Volume 1, Volume 2. That was the compilations. And we've done that for 2 years, putting on parties and just developing the whole scene. And then we lost our funding, and we went from there. I opened with another guy, Roger Ram, who was a flute player in Quintessence, 60s band.
Oh, I do actually know that. Well, I know I've seen videos of them band. There's some amazing footage of them playing in Portobello in the late 60s.
Yeah, and also in the Roundhouse, in the UFO club.
Okay.
They played.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're from Portobello.
Yeah.
Raj is from Portobello.
Yeah.
Anyway, we opened Tip Records, TIP, and the Infinity Project it stands for. And so we opened up. He already had a band called the Infinity Project, but Tip Records was something separate. So we opened another label, and we started doing parties under the banner of Tip Records as well as Dragonfly. And you know, slowly the scene was building up. And
you doing parties in London, or you were doing
parties in London in Linford Film Studios?
Oh yeah. Okay.
In Dragon Butterfly Studios. We were doing it outside London at Longleat, in the Sacred Oak Grove, and places like that. Yeah, people would give us their land and their houses, so we could do some parties in their big gardens. Yeah. It was good. And it was very different. For me, it was like, as I said, it was like the next step. It was the next step.
How did that feel compared to, obviously, you'd had the full-on couple of years,
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it started to grow and the music started to get more interesting and it was electronic and the sounds were getting more interesting and I just liked it. It was really sexy and groovy and the arrangement and not just the music, but there was a whole like movement and fashion, and it was really sexy and sort of a bit more grown up, you know, than the acid house scene. It was like it evolved, and so we had this, just like we were getting ecstasy from the Sannyasins, now we were getting LSD from Timothy Leary's group and Albert Hoffman's Swiss group, and they were coming to Goa with the finest LSD, and we were taking it and dancing. We weren't taking it and sitting by the beach going, oh, there's a whale, or sitting in the field, you know. We were taking it and doing what we were doing in Amnesia, but on the beaches of Goa underneath the palm trees and open air parties all over again.
It sounds a little bit like the early Ibiza sort of scene, with all the weird mixture of people and like.
We were back outside again.
Yeah.
You know, but like everywhere, all those beautiful spaces that we had parties in Goa, people started coming to Goa. Oh, we want to live in Goa. You know, we want to move to Goa, and then they started buying up all the land and building their houses, and then getting married and having kids, and then they're complaining about the noise of the parties.
Exactly.
And then
it's the age-old story of
and then next minute you've got sound monitors coming round, you know, and it's over the limit, decibel counters. And it's the same people, you know, and it's the same.
They've got an LSD
story.
Monitor though, have they?
Yeah.
Check how much you're tripping.
So they killed it. They killed Goa. Goa's finished. You know, it's just over. And I went to Japan. I moved straight to Japan, and I lived there for 7 years, and we built the scene up there, and it was brilliant. We brought all the artists from Europe.
So this was like the trance scene in Japan.
This was the trance scene in Japan, and I was managing a band called Juno Reactor, who were like I thought they were the best trance band of the time.
They're a massive band, aren't they, Juno Reactor? Yeah.
So I managed them for the first 10 years when they were growing.
What was it like being a manager? I mean, I guess that's the same as. Is it similar to promoting a club? I guess you got you got the gift of the gab for being a promoter. So
I was just organising them gigs and taking them around, and I put them on twice a year in Japan. So at this huge Equinox festival that happened twice a year, because our company was called Equinox. I went from Tip to Equinox in Tokyo, and done the same thing again. But it was amazing in Japan. It was just at the right time. Everything worked. Everyone was up for it. It was still underground, and the Japanese people just, they just chose to sort of ignore it. You know what I mean? They just looked the other way.
Really? Because I thought they were quite hardcore, and because I think Paul McCartney was famous, like banned for years from Japan for having a spliff at the airport and stuff.
Yeah, but what happened is after we'd done our thing, it became commercial, and then people started getting arrested for ecstasy. And it's when the Yakuza started, just like in England. You started getting the Doves and all the rest of it.
No, sure.
People.
Like I said, it is the same old story.
Yeah, the same old story. The Yakuza started taking control of the drug market in Japan. And of course, people started getting busted and blah, blah, blah. But I was always, I'd done my thing and moved on by then. Yeah. But Tokyo was next level. I mean, Sony comes from Japan, everything comes from Japan, that's where our stuff comes from.
Well, I mean, like, if you're talking about acid house, all the machines that made the classic acid house, and obviously probably a lot of the trance stuff as well, is they're all like Roland Japanese instruments.
Exactly.
And it's...
So it was like going back to Japan, and I remember going into the first venue that we'd done a gig, and the sound guy, he's just got this machine, and it's a laser, and it goes boom, 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 boom.
Oh, wow.
And he plugged it into the computer, and it just done the acoustics.
Yeah.
It was incredible, but I'm talking about 1997. that was like brand new technology back then.
Well, they're always about 10 years ahead, or
it just summed up the whole acoustics, and you knew exactly where to put the speakers, and everything. It was like incredible, and this is what it was all about. It was all working with all the latest cutting edge materials, instruments, technology, music, and that's what the trance scene was for me. I mean, it's now progressed into psytrance, which I don't understand at all. And I gave up working in music on the millennium. After 7 years of Japan, we got to the millennium, and I said, that's enough. It's so I moved to Ibiza, to the north of the island.
Okay.
Never went to any clubs. Just lived like a hippie. Just with nice people, and just we put on a few parties up in Ibiza in the mountains. But for me, it kind of had enough. It's time to rest again.
Yeah. Well, I said you've done your time in the parties, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went travelling. I just went travelling and started always putting on a party here and there. But I spent 5 years after that in India, and then another 5 years in Kathmandu in Nepal. While I was in Nepal, Paul Oakenfold, I managed, because they wanted a big time DJ, and they wanted Carl and others, but you have to go through their management, and unless
do you still speak to Carl or not, or like?
No, I haven't spoken to Carl for a long time.
Yeah.
But I speak to Paul, and I managed to get Paul to come over to Kathmandu, and we've done this event at Everest base camp.
Oh, amazing! Yeah.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
It's Sound Trek Everest.
Yeah.
It's really great. There's a full 40-minute version, and there's the trailer. And when we came down, the Prime Minister was shaking our hands, and they loved it. We included a lot of people in it, and we had quite a lot of money given to us to make it happen. And that was one of the last things I'd done, soundtrack in Mount Everest Base Camp. And then I came back to England to work. I couldn't because of COVID, and I got stuck in Ibiza for 4 years. And now I'm back in London.
What are you up to now?
I'm studying. I'm studying at Morley. I'm doing podcasting and broadcasting. I'm doing a bit of DJing. I don't want to DJ in clubs. I want to be a gig DJ, working with London-based sort of indie, punky dance bands.
Yeah.
And I'm doing indie dance music because that's where the new sounds. I feel that's the sound that grabs me right now. I like it, and I'd like to develop that a bit more. So that's what I'm doing, and just building up my life in London.
So do you think you're going to be doing your own podcast then? Is that the plan, or like?
Well, people keep asking me when's the book coming?
Yeah.
And I keep saying, I'm writing it, but I kind of stopped doing it quite a while ago. I got as much as I could down, and then I didn't get inspired to continue. And then I thought, why write a book when you could actually do a series of podcasts and bring all the people from each chapter into each podcast, because they're all still alive, and make it.
You should do.
And make it more interesting.
Well, you should do. Look, we've covered. I'm not sure how long we've spoken for because I can't see the clock properly, but we've spoken for quite a long time. There's a lot of people in this story that you could bring in.
Yeah, no, it's not just. I could bring in so many people, not just all the DJs, hundreds of DJs that I helped, but there's people that I helped that have set up lighting companies.
It's not all about the DJ. I mean, look,
it's all connected.
It's not all about. It's not all just about the DJs.
No,
is it?
It's not. There's lots of other interesting people out there that have done things which are connected.
In one way, I mean, that's why I like talking to people from all different parts of it and hearing the different stories.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, you're not really a DJ. You've had your moments of doing it.
Yeah.
But, you're more like a promoter, socialiser, getting stuff done and pushing stuff together.
But I wanted to understand the CDJs, the new technology. So I started doing a course on new technology at Morley. And then Paul gave me a gig with Nancy and him at the Cross.
Oh, amazing.
Which was...
When was that?
That was in September, the 14th of September.
Okay, cool. How was it?
Yeah, it was packed.
Yeah?
But
How was your set?
Yeah, it was good, but they didn't appreciate it because there was all the Balearic crowd.
All right.
And I didn't get to play it to the people that would appreciate it until last week. I played at the Water Rat with the Akashic Gods.
Yeah.
And it was more indie punk. And now I'd really like to... I'm looking at possibly doing a once-a-month radio show. And if I can work with bands and DJ with them, I'll record it and then do a playback and an interview. And interview some of the people I've worked with along the way. You
should do, because you've got loads of amazing stories.
Yes.
You've gone across loads of different scenes. You're good at talking.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
It's been an absolute pleasure to...
Thanks a lot for coming over today and telling all your stories. Yeah.
Finally.
We got it together for 25. Oh, yeah. All right, easy.
Take care. Thank you for having me now.
No worries.